Welcome back to our webinar series on acoustic, elastic, and thermal metamaterials. Today we have the great pleasure to welcome Dr. Marie Touboul, who will discuss some acoustic and elastic wave propagation in microstructured media with interfaces. And this is about homogenization, simulation, and optimization. And it's work which she carried out during her PhD, supervised by Cédric Bellis and Bruno Lombard at the LMA in Marseille. Dr. Touboul.
Thank you for the invitation, Bogdan, Sébastien, and Mohamed. So it's a great pleasure to present this work today, which was supervised during my PhD at the LMA. So the presentation will be about taking into account the interfaces for wave propagation in microstructured media, with aspects about homogenization, time domain simulations, and optimization. So, of course, the context starts with metamaterials, and more precisely with homogenization, which is a very useful tool if we want to replace a microstructure by a homogeneous effective medium, and also to approximate the fields to a given order. And this presents different advantages. The first one is that we can then have access to some analytical information on the macroscopic behavior in the effective medium. And we also have a computational gain since we don't need to discretize on the fine scale of the microstructure anymore. And the third advantage is that the homogenization can also be a basis for optimization if we want to reach a specific macroscopic behavior. So here is an example in statics with a finite unit cell and the resulting periodic microstructure obtained if we want to maximize the shear modulus. And another one in dynamics if we want to control the dispersion behavior, with here the maximization of the dispersion in diagonal directions. So the question in this work is about the effects of interfaces in homogenization, and there can be different types of interfaces. The first one will be microstructured interfaces. So we have a thin row of scatterers here in orange, which is embedded in a homogeneous matrix, which can be interesting, for example, for size reduction of metamaterial. And in this case, homogenization has already been performed in the time domain, and time domain simulations have already been performed too. But when we consider a high contrast between the different constituents, so that resonances can occur with a wavelength that fits in one inclusion, then homogenization has been performed, but in the frequency domain, not in the time domain, and no time domain simulations have been proposed. Then another aspect I will talk about during this presentation is about the optimization of these microstructured interfaces in order to design the microstructure and to get a specific macroscopic effect, but in the low contrast case, which is less intricate than the high contrast one. And third aspect will be about another type of interfaces. So we come back to bulk metamaterials, but with an imperfect interface, which models the fact that the contacts between the different constituents is imperfect. So we have fields discontinuities between the inclusions and the matrix. And in this framework, the aim is to approximate the behavior at both low and high frequency thanks to homogenization. So the presentation will be divided in two parts. The first one will be about the questions about the microstructured interfaces with both the time domain simulations and the optimization. And the second one will be about the imperfect interfaces. So let's start with the first part about the microstructured interfaces, with here a full field time domain simulation with a microstructure which is made of tilted ellipses with a high contrast between the parameters of the ellipses and of the homogeneous matrix. And as we can see, we have complex phenomena that occur in the ellipse, due to this high contrast, and this full-field simulation was really costly to perform since we had to mesh on the small ellipses and even more due to this high contrast. So that motivates again the use of homogenization. And the work presented in this part was also performed thanks to different collaborations. So for the time domain formulation with Kim Pham, Agnès Morel, and Jean-Jacques Marigot, and for the optimization part with Rémi Cornadian. So first, some details about the configuration. So as I've said, it will be a microstructured interface. So a thin row of thickness E and periodicity H with E and H, which are of the same order of magnitude. And this will be in the context of antiplane linear elasticity. So it could also be acoustics. And we will assume that we are in the low frequency or long wavelength regime. So that means that the wavelength is assumed to be much larger than the periodicity H of the array, so that we can introduce a small parameter eta, which is assumed to be really small compared to 1. And then for the physical parameters, we can do different assumptions regarding the contrast between the parameters of the matrix and the ones of the inclusion. The first one is a low contrast for both the mass density and the shear modulus. And the second one is a high contrast. So we have a high contrast in the shear modulus, more precisely in eta squared, where eta is a small parameter of the low frequency homogenization. And in this configuration, there were two main objectives. The first one was to perform time domain simulation in the high contrast case. And the second one was to study optimization of the microstructure, but in the low contrast case. So first, I will start with the known results about this, about both cases that will be used later on. And I will start with a low contrast case. So the first thing is the fact that homogenization of thin layers allow to replace this type of microstructured arrays by a homogeneous medium on each part of an enlarged interface in which we don't have to compute anything. No field is defined in the enlarged interface, but we impose on its boundaries some effective jump conditions that take into account the characteristics of the microstructure. And these jump conditions in this low contrast case have been obtained up to the first order in the literature for both the velocity and the normal component of the stress vector. So they link the velocity and the normal stress to their jumps to their mean values across the interface, thanks to the introduction of some effective tensors B and C that contain the effective parameters that themselves require to solve numerically two bond cell problems. So a cell problem which is defined around one single inclusion in a semi-infinite strip. And then a numerical method has been used in order to perform time domain simulations too in this low contrast case for the effective medium. So the next step and the objective of the work was in this configuration to think about the optimization of the microstructure. And to do so, there are two main steps. The first one is to compute the sensitivities of the effective parameters to changes in the microstructure. And the second one is to propose an optimization process based on this information. So now the known results in the high contrast case. We still have the same type of homogenization for thin layers, which allows to get some jump conditions that have been obtained this time in the frequency domain, still at the first order for the velocity and the stress vector. And we still have the parameters B and C that require the resolution of cell problems, but we also have an additional effective coefficient D, which depends, contrary of the two other ones, on the frequency omega. And when we look at its expression, in fact, it involves some resonant frequencies omega r, which are linked to the eigenvalues of a Laplacian problem, which is defined in one single inclusion, and in fact to a subset of these eigenvalues, since only the eigenvalues associated to modes with a non-Mill value will be taken into account. And the objective here was to take into account this resonant behavior in order to perform time domain simulations for the effective model. And to do so, the first step was to perform a time domain formulation, to compute a time domain formulation, and then to propose a numerical method. So first, I will start with the time domain formulation in this high contrast case. So the time domain formulation is obtained thanks to homogenization, which is conducted directly in the time domain in order to find an approximation for the fields at the first order. And to do so, we use match asymptotic expansions. The first step in this method is to introduce two independent spatial scales. The first one, x, takes into account for the slow continuous variations of the fields. And the second one, y, takes into account the fast small-scale variations of the fields, and it is linked to x through a scaling in eta, where eta is a small parameter of the low-frequency homogenization framework. And then we assume two expansions for the fields, an expansion in an outer region, so far from the interface, where the fields are assumed to depend only on the slow variable x. And we also have a second expansion in an inner region, so near the interface, where the fields are assumed to depend on the fast variable y and also on the slow variable x, but only in the direction of the interface. And these two expansions have to match in an intermediate region, which corresponds to x1 going to 0 and y1 going to infinity. So thanks to this match asymptotic expansion, we get some jump conditions for the velocity and the normal stress across x1 equals to 0. So across an interface of thickness 0. But for energy purposes, I will detail later on, we want to work with an interface of a non-zero thickness, so with an enlarged interface. And this will be possible if the thickness of this enlarged interface is of same order than the thickness E of the original microstructured interface. And then finally, we have our effective jump conditions on an enlarged interface of thickness A. So some more details about these jump conditions. The first thing is that they require also the resolution of two bond cell problems in a semi-infinite strip, as previously said, but also due to this high contrast in the shear modulus, we also need to solve an elementary problem in one single inclusion, and its solution Wi will satisfy on the boundary of the inclusion a boundary condition that involves the mean value of the velocity on the interface. And when we look at the final expressions of the effective jump conditions, we see consequently that due to Wi, we will have for each point of the enlarged interface to compute this elementary problem solution, and this for every time too. So then we have this first order effective problem, which is written directly in the time domain. So the next question is that, is this problem well posed? And to answer it, we can perform an energy analysis. And this energy analysis is performed directly in the effective medium. And we can see that in this medium, we have the conservation of the sum of two quantities, E and EA, where E is a bulk energy term, which is a classical volume energy, but which is defined outside the enlarged interface. And we also have an interface term EA with some coefficients that appear in red, which are proved to be positive if the thickness A of the enlarged interface is greater than the thickness E of the original microstructured array. So under this condition, EA is positive and is consequently an interface energy, and the problem is proved to be stable. So now that we have this first order effective model, which is proved to be well posed, the next question is about performing time domain simulations for this effective resonant problem. So to sum up, in the homogenized medium, the equations are conservation equations outside the enlarged interface, plus some effective jump conditions on the interface with the specificity, with a high contrast, with the resonant term which appears here in red. So when we have conservation loss and jump conditions that are non-resonance, so with no additional term in red, then the time domain simulations can be performed thanks to finite differences and to an immerse interface method. Here, the main question is about dealing with this additional resonant term. And there could be different strategies. The first one could be to start with the expression of this resonant term directly in the frequency domain, so with the frequency-dependent coefficient D, and to write it formally in the time domain from its expression. So the problem is that it would be non-local in time with the convolution product, so it would reduce the benefits of homogenization since we would have to store the story of the traces of the solution. A second possibility is to work with this term as obtained thanks to the homogenization directly in the time domain. So that means that for every point of the interface, we will have to compute the solution of the elementary problem, which is defined in one single inclusion, and this at each time step. And the third possibility is to use auxiliary fields. So we have to introduce additional fields, but at least we have a local in-time problem thanks to these new fields. And we don't have to solve an additional problem which is defined in the inclusion. So that means that everything linked to the microstructure is computed in a preprocessing step. So here we choose to use the auxiliary field strategy. So I will give some more details on it in 1D, but the idea is the same in higher dimensions. So as I've said, the main difficulty is to deal with the resonant term in red here with F the Fourier transform. So we start with its expression in the frequency domain that makes appear the resonant frequencies. We truncate this sum to a finite number of resonances. And the main idea of auxiliary variables is to use the correspondence between the Fourier and the time domain space with the time domain derivatives. So using that, we introduce for each resonant a new variable JR, so that in the time domain, the jump condition for the stress is now just a sum of these new auxiliary variables. And of course, we have to add the equation satisfied by this new variable in the time domain. And since we want to have a first order formulation, we also introduce GR, which is the time derivative of JR. So at the end, we started from these two jump conditions in the frequency domain. And at the end, we have an augmented system since we have two new auxiliary variables to compute along the interface. But thanks to them, we have a first order in local in-time system. So then the question is about discretizing this augmented system and its jump conditions. So to discretize jump conditions, here again, there can be different strategies. The first one could be a stair-step approximation, which would be really easy to implement, but would lead to a drop in order of convergence. and the fields will not satisfy the jump condition, so we will not see the resonant behavior. The second possibility is to use an unstructured mesh. So in this case, it's possible to take into account the jump conditions. The drawback is the fact that the meshing step can be intricate if the geometry, depending on the geometry of the interface. And the second drawback is the fact that the time step will be linked to the smallest element of the mesh through the CFL condition. And the third possibility is to use an immersed interface method. In this case, again, we can take into account the jump conditions. And the advantage is that the mesh does not have to coincide with the interface. The interface is immersed in a uniform grid. But the drawback is that we have no proof of stability. So here we choose to use an explicit simplified interface method, which is a kind of immersed interface method. So the idea is to use far from the interface a finite differences scheme on a uniform Cartesian grid. And near the interface, the stencil of our finite differences scheme will need to have some values that will lay into the enlarged interface, so where the field is not defined. So at this point that lay into the enlarged interface, we will build some ghost values in order to take into account the properties of the interface. Since these ghost values will be built as a smooth inverse expansion of the solution on the left and on the right interface. So to sum up, the objective to discretize these resonant jump conditions was to propose a method to handle both the geometry and the physics of the enlarged interface while preserving the numerical efficiency. So in the main lines, there are two main steps. The first one is the pre-processing, where we will detect all the irregular points, so the points that will need some values that lay into the interface. Then we will compute a lot of matrices that are required for the explicit simplified interface method that include projections on the interface in order to handle the geometry and high order jump conditions in order to take into account these resonant jump conditions, and also a lot of linear algebra. And then we have the time stepping part, with at each time step the computation of the auxiliary variables, which is a specificity of the resonant case, and then the computation of the ghost values, and finally the use of the finite differences scheme that will use when necessary, so at the irregular points the ghost values previously built. And another specificity of the resonant case is that we will also need to update a memory vector that will be used at the next time step in order to compute the auxiliary variables. And since a lot of things are performed in pre-processing, the additional cost is negligible, for example, compared to finite differences in a homogeneous medium. So this numerical method has been developed in both 1D and 2D, and has been validated thanks to comparisons with analytical solutions. So a quick overview of this validation. So first, in 1D, so we are able to compute an analytical solution starting from the expression of the jump conditions in the frequency domain. And then we can compare the numerical and the analytical solution in this effective resonant medium. And we can see that we have a good agreement. And to be more quantitative, we can also measure orders of accuracy. And we can then see that we can reach the same order of accuracy as in the non-resonant case. And in terms of numerical analysis, there is no stability proof, but local truncation error analysis has been performed and underlines the fact that we can reach the same order as in the non-resonant case, and this analysis is in agreement with all the numerical measurements. And we can do the same type of validations in 2D, where the numerical method is more intricate since we need to handle the 2D geometry, and that can lead to the introduction of new auxiliary variables. So first 2D example is a tilted interface. So here we can see the initial velocity field in the effective medium, and the velocity fields after a given time at which we compare the solutions along x1 equal to 0. And we can see that we have a good agreement with the same order of error as in 1D. And the last example is the one of a circular interface. So now the enlarged interface is in between these two black circles. And again, we have a good agreement with the analytical solution, and that allows to validate some curvature terms that are not taken into account if we consider a plane interface as previously. So now that we have this numerical method in order to perform time domain simulation in the resonant effective medium, we can use it in order to make comparisons with simulation in the world microstructure in order to validate the accuracy of the jump conditions. So to do so, we consider a microstructure which is made of tilted ellipses with a high contrast in the shear modulus of 2 orders of magnitude, and we choose a thickness of the enlarged interface which is the same than the thickness of the original microstructured array. And for the source, we have a large band signal of central frequency f0, and here are the source spectrum for 3 values of the central frequency that I will use later on for numerical experiments. So each central frequency is associated to a value of eta in red, which is the parameter which is assumed to be small. And this value is indicated here with a dashed line. And as we can see, since the source is a large band signal, in fact, it will involve even higher values of these parameters. And the second thing we can notice is that the higher the frequency is, the more resonances of the inclusion will be taken into account. The simulation, the full field simulation in the microstructure were performed with an explicit simplified interface method too, but this time with a perfect contact between the ellipses and the matrix. And one important thing is when we have to choose a mesh size, because in the microstructure problem, we can see that we have to choose a mesh size which is 8 times smaller than for the homogenized problem. And this will lead to a computational time that is much smaller for the homogenized problem, which underlines once more the benefits of the homogenization. So now we can compare the simulation in both the microstructured and the homogenized configuration. So the velocity fields for the microstructure configuration in the first row and the homogenized in the second row for 3 values of the central frequencies, the 3 values I've presented before. And we can also plot the profiles, for example, along x1 equal to 0. And we can see that we have a good agreement between the microstructure and the homogenized fields, but that deteriorates as eta goes to 1, as assumed by the low frequency hypothesis. And we can do the same type of validation in a full 2D configuration. So here again, the microstructure in the first row and the homogenized in the second row. And these are for the 2 highest frequencies of the previous example. And we can see that we have a good agreement between the 2 simulations with a good agreement even for values of eta, which are already close to 1. So now that we have investigated the agreement of between the effective model and the microstructured configuration, we can use the homogenized configuration in order to investigate an example of application. To do so, we can consider dissipation. So I won't give any detail on this, but we can consider dissipation in the inclusions of the microstructure, and then to have a modified effective model, and we can also take into account the modification in the numerical method. And thanks to homogenization, we have a really easy way to compute analytically the scattering coefficients, so the reflection and the transmission coefficients R and T. And consequently, the scattering matrix that we link the amplitudes of ingoing waves coming from the left and the right on the enlarged interface to the associated amplitudes of the outgoing waves. And we know that if we have a zero of the determinant of the scattering matrix that occurs for a real frequency, then we can observe coherent perfect absorption, which was already observed, but for geometrical resonances. So here is the position of the zero of the determinant of the scattering matrix around the first resonance of the resonant model. And indeed, we can see that increasing the dissipation, we find a critical value of the dissipation parameter for which the zero of the determinant will lie on the real axis. And in fact, this can be observed for each resonance. So for each resonance, we can find a different critical value of the dissipation that will lead to perfect absorption if we choose well the amplitudes of the sources. And this phenomenon is observed thanks to time domain simulation performed directly in the effective model thanks to the numerical method I presented before. So here we have two coherent sources which are located at the black crosses on each part of the enlarged interface. On the left, without dissipation, and on the right for the critical value of the dissipation associated with the first resonance. And we can see that for the critical value of the dissipation, we have nothing else that's 0.5, which is the amplitude of the emitted velocity at the source points. So that means that everything is absorbed by the enlarged interface, contrary to the inviscid case. So that was the end of this first part about the microstructural interfaces with a high contrast. And now still about microstructural interfaces, I will talk about the optimization in the low contrast case. The first thing I have to say is that there can be different types of optimization, but here I will only talk about topological optimization. And for the low contrast case, so I recall here the jump condition in the low contrast case with the effective parameters in blue, B, S, and C. That depends on the resolution of two bond cell problems. And in order to perform optimization, the first step will be to quantify the sensitivity of the effective parameters to changes of the topology of the microstructure. And the second one to propose a gradient-based optimization process thanks to this information. So first, the topological sensitivities of the effective parameters. So we can quantify this sensitivity thanks to the introduction of a small perturbation in one unit periodic cell. And this perturbation will be located at Z with a shape P and a size epsilon, and will be linked to a material perturbation delta M. And then we can write an asymptotic expansion for the effective parameter associated to this perturbed cell, as the size of the perturbation is going to 0. And the term in epsilon squared will be the topological derivatives that will measure the sensitivity of the effective parameters to topology changes, since the more negative it is, the more the inhomogeneity will decrease the value of the effective parameter. So the topological derivatives have been computed for the three effective parameters. The important thing to notice is that it requires to compute the gradients of phi, which is a solution to the bond cell problems, and the polarization tensor, but which is known analytically in particular cases of the perturbation of the shape of the perturbation, for example, for ellipses. And this computation of the topological derivatives has been validated numerically for an ellipsoidal perturbation. So now that we have this information about the topological sensitivity, we can use it in order to analyze the sensitivity of the model. To do so, we compute again the scattering coefficients in the effective model, since it's easy to have an analytical expression for a plane wave with a given incident angle. And we can notice these properties for the reflection and the transmission coefficients. So we have a full symmetry with respect to the normal incidence for the reflection coefficient. And for the transmission coefficient, we have a symmetry in terms of the modulus, but not in terms of the arguments. And when we look at this asymmetric term, it is proportional to the effective parameter B2, which is also equal to C1. So we can wonder if we can have directional macroscopic effects if we have a microstructure which is associated to a large value of the parameter B2. So to answer it, the first thing is to investigate the behavior of these effective parameters B2 when we change the microstructure. And this can be done easily thanks to the topological derivative previously computed. So starting from its definition, because we can notice that this expression will give satisfying results even for quite large values of the size of the perturbation epsilon. And the advantage that is that this expression will be fully analytical, so we don't need to compute numerically the solution of the cell problems. And thanks to this analysis, we can notice that we can have large values of the parameter B2 for microstructures that are very thin and tilted. So if we choose this kind of microstructure, for example, a really thin and tilted rectangle, and that we compute the time domain simulation for the corresponding effective model, and that we plot the homogenized scattered velocity field, we can see, in fact, that we have an asymmetry on the transmitted field with an intensity which is more important at the top of the domain, which is not the case if we have, for example, a symmetric microstructure. So now that we have this information about the topological sensitivity, we can move on to the optimization problem given an objective functional J. So we link the expression of the topological derivative of the cost functional to the ones computed of the effective parameters thanks to the chain rule. And then we use a gradient descent iterative algorithm using a level set method to update the material distribution. And the thing is, since the algorithm is iterative, this will need to compute a lot of bound cell problems, which are defined in an semi-infinite medium. So the first step is then to reformulate these cell problems in a bounded domain this time, thanks to Dirichlet-Tuneman operators. And in this bounded domain with this new formulation, then we decompose the fields into a periodic part and a boundary corrector, with the periodic part which is computed thanks to FFT-based computation, and the boundary part which is known analytically, and which is in terms of the periodic part, and which is a boundary corrector in order to satisfy the Dirichlet-Neumann conditions. And to finish with the first preliminary result of optimization. For example, if we want to minimize the reflection for a given incident angle with a desired ratio of between the material of the inclusion, which will be represented in black, and the one of the matrix represented in white. So we choose a cost functional that takes into account both the reflection and the volume targets. We can start with, for example, this initial unit cell that does not satisfy the volume ratio, and we get this final configuration that satisfies the volume constraint, but which is not really satisfying because it's not really smooth. So to have a smoother final configuration, we can add a perimeter penalization, which would be associated to a given microstructure when repeated periodically. And if we plot the cost functional along the iterations, we can see that it is well decreased. And in fact, with both without and with perimeter penalization, we reach the target phase ratio. But there are still questions about how to reaching a strong macroscopic effect, for example, and maybe for this it would be more interesting to apply this optimization to other models, so maybe a second order, a resonant model, or an interface with macroscopically varying properties. So that's the end of this part about the microstructural interfaces. So now I will move on to the second part about the imperfect interfaces. And this part was a collaboration with Raphaël Assier. And the main objective is to take into account jump conditions in order to model imperfect contacts between the matrix and the inclusions. So if we do the link with the previous part, and we look again at the low contrast jump conditions, we can rewrite them like that, so that for a given set of parameters, we recover the well-known spring mass jump conditions that will be used in this part. And that involve two parameters, the stiffness K and the mass M. So the objective in this part was to model the behavior of this microstructure media with spring mass interfaces at both low and high frequencies, thanks to homogenization. And at low frequency for a 1D setting, but with possibly non-linear interfaces, or a 2D, 3D with linear interfaces, but I will not go into details for this one. And at higher frequencies, it will be a 1D linear setting. So let's start with the low frequency homogenization. So we have our 1D problem statement with spring mass jump conditions at the interfaces, but with a second condition, which is slightly more complicated than the one I presented before, since we also have L, which is a possibly non-linear constitutive equation with some suitable assumptions. So for example, here we have a hyperbolic non-linear relation and a linear one. And we have two assumptions regarding the source F. The first one is a low frequency assumption. So here again, the wavelength is assumed to be much larger than the periodicity, so that we can introduce a small parameter eta. But we also assume if the constitutive relation L is nonlinear, that we have a low amplitude in order to have no additional scaling in eta, at least at short times. And then the objective was to obtain a homogenized model with these spring mass interfaces, which are possibly nonlinear. So an overview of the main results. So for the zeroth order field, we have this equilibrium equation, which involves a constant mass density. And the stress is given by a nonlinear strain-stress relation GF. At the first order, we also have an equilibrium equation, but with an additional source term, which depends on the spatial and temporal derivatives of the zeroth order wave field. And a strain-stress relation, which is this time heterogeneous but linear. And finally, if we introduce the right cell function that depends non-linearly on the zeroth order strain, we have the total corrector field. So finally, we have the overall first order approximation with some suitable properties for numerical purposes, that are that the systems, the first order systems at both the zeroth and the first order will be strictly hyperbolic, with at the zeroth order a system which is nonlinear, while it's linear at the first order. Now some numerical illustration to begin with in the linear case. So we want to compare the velocity VH in the microstructure to the approximation at both the zeroth and the first order. So the exact velocity is in blue, and the zeroth and first order are in green and red. And we can see that the zeroth order approximation is the mean field, while the first order one will take into account the local fluctuations of the wave field. And of course, if we increase the frequency and consequently the parameter eta, we increase consequently the dispersive effects, and we observe high frequency oscillations that appear and that will not take into account by the first order homogenized effective field, but this one still take into account the main variations of the fields. Now, if we look at an example in the nonlinear case, if we have both a low frequency and a low amplitude for the source, we have the same type of agreement with the first order field that takes into account the local fluctuations. And we can see the limit of validity of the model if we increase either the frequency eta or the amplitude A. And in this case, we can see again high frequency oscillations that are not well taken into account. And to finish with this low frequency part, some energy considerations. So in the microstructure medium, we have the conservation of energy EH. And in the zeroth order effective model, we have the conservation of E0, but also the existence of shock. So E0 is conserved only until a critical time T star, from which it starts to decrease, as we can see here. And in fact, this critical time T star is smaller when we increase the amplitude of the source. And we can have an estimation of this time T star, which is consequently an upper bound of an estimation of an upper bound of the time of the validity of the effective model, as we can notice here, because for times greater than T star in these seismograms, we can see that in the microstructured configuration, we have high frequency oscillations that appear and that will not be taken into account by the effective first order model. And now for the high frequency part. So we come back again to a 1D linear setting, for which the results of the low frequency homogenization at the zeroth order were the following. So we have a macroscopic field and an approximation of the dispersion diagram, but which is valid only at low frequency. And the objective in this last part is to approximate this behavior, but at higher frequencies, with this still with spring mass imperfect interfaces. And this is possible thanks to high frequency homogenization, which is a way of getting an approximation near the edges of the dispersion diagram. So when k goes to 0 or goes to pi over h. The main differences with the low frequency homogenization is that we will have an ansatz for both the non-dimensionalized wave field, but also the non-dimensionalized frequency eta, which was in the low frequency part, the small parameter. So here it won't be small since we have this zeroth order term eta 0, which will represent an edge of the dispersion diagram, either a left one, which will give periodic conditions, or a right one, which will be linked to anti-periodic conditions. And if we collect the leading order terms in the equation of the problem, we can also see that eta 0 squared is an eigenvalue for an eigenvalue problem, which is different of the one obtained in the case of perfect interfaces, since the eigenvalue eta 0 squared will also play a role in the boundary condition. And then we can get an approximation of both the dispersion relation and the wave field. For example, if the eigenvalue eta 0 is assumed to be simple. So we have an approximation for both the left and the right edge, which is quadratic for the dispersion relation, and an approximation of the wave field with u0 hat, which is the eigenfunction associated with the eigenvalue eta 0. And if we plot the effective approximation of the dispersion diagram on the exact one, we can see that we have a good agreement near the edges of the dispersion diagram. But in fact, the eigenvalue is not always a simple one. We can also consider two other cases. The first one is the case of a double eigenvalue. So when we have two slopes that intersect, when we have two branches that intersect in eta 0 with non-zero slopes, but also nearby eigenvalues, if we consider two eigenvalues that are close to each other with a distance between both of them, which scales into delta, where delta is the small parameter. And in these both cases, we can also get an approximation for both the dispersion relation and the zeroth order wave field. So for example, we can notice that we will have two linear approximation for the double eigenvalue case with two opposite slopes. And again, we can plot the effective approximations on the exact dispersion diagram. And we can see that in all cases, we have a good approximation near the edges. And the second thing is that for the same configuration, if we consider the simple effective approximation and the nearby effective approximation, we can see that the nearby one is much longer lived in terms of range of frequency, especially if we consider two eigenvalues that are really close to each other, which is called here an almost direct point. And to finish with, we can also check that the approximation for the wave field is a zeroth order approximation. So now to conclude, so the main questions were about taking into account interfaces in microstructured media for mainly for homogenization. So the first question was about the microstructural interfaces with a high contrast, where we propose a time domain formulation and time domain simulations. The second one about the optimization in the low contrast case. And the third one about the homogenization in bulk, but with imperfect interfaces with approximations obtained at both low and high frequency. And some perspectives. The first one could be about the geometric assumptions, because we made a lot of geometric assumptions which are not so realistic. For example, for the microstructured array, we assume that we have one single row which is periodic and of infinite length. Also about the long-term behavior and the fact that the effective models will not take well into account the dispersion behavior that appear when time increases. And the third one about the optimization and how to apply it in order to have some macroscopic effects. So I thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Touboul, for this fantastic talk. So now I would like to welcome people in the audience to come forward with their questions. I'm sure we have many questions today following this inspirational talk. These people.